Ralph Knapp, Director of IT at the Mary Frances Early College of Education. And today we're going to take a few minutes and do a brief video tour of some of the newer renovated teaching spaces in our college. First off, as I'm sure you all have studied and talked about, there's 100 different classifications of these kind of rooms. For simplicity and our philosophy, which I'll tell you a little bit about as we go, we refer to these rooms as multi-screen classrooms because they have both a projector and TV screens around the room. What's important about that is it doesn't imply anything to faculty or students as to what kind of teaching has to go on in this classroom. When we redesigned these rooms, the design philosophy was allow any kind of teaching to happen in the room. So, in a very basic stance, if a professor just wants to come in, stand in the front of the room like I'm doing right now, and lecture to the class, we have whiteboards, multiples around the room, in every room. So a professor could pick up a dry erase board, write on the board, talk to the class, and that's a very minimal, direct kind of teaching in the classroom. Now obviously, we're in a world of technology, and as we ratchet up, we're going to use more and more technology. Now what we hope is that you don't walk into a room and just be overwhelmed with all the gadgets. So at a very rudimentary level, we have a computer in every room provided, so an instructor knows exactly what they're coming into. Now, one of the very basic battles we all have in the world of computers is PC or Macintosh. You'll see this is a Macintosh, but all of our teacher stations are set up to do what's called dual boot. So when you first turn on the computer, you're presented with a screen that offers you Mac or PC or Windows. So whichever platform the instructor is most comfortable with, that's what they can use. This is really important in areas like statistics, quantitative methods. Some of those courses involve rather expensive pieces of software. Having a dedicated computer in the room allows the instructor not to have to worry about how do they get the software, how do they install it, is it configured the way they want. The regular computer in the room is set up just the way they need it every time they come into the room. Now, you may want to do other things in every screen, every room at a very minimal level. Again, this is just to bring the comfort level for an instructor who's been using a certain kind of classroom for many years. They can come in our room and there's a screen, which again, it will be very close to the teacher station, that they can lower the projection screen and have a single projector classroom, just like they've had for many, many years. We try to minimize the degree to which the screen overlaps the whiteboards, but as you can see in this room and many others, we have to make some compromises with that. Now, and I'll also briefly mention, we have a touch panel in all the rooms. Sometimes it's here on the wall, sometimes it's in the teacher's podium, that has, in these newer rooms, a very simplified way of switching sources. So I can pick what do I want to show to the students? In this case, I'm saying I want the computer in the room to show. So I've clicked one time for the computer, and then I've clicked on the projector, and the image will go to that device. So it's source, device. When we see later with multiple screens, you might want every other screen to show what's on the computer at the front, and then you just simply click every other screen, and that will go on to those screens. Now, maybe I'm a professor that is very, does a lot of PowerPoints, does a lot of things that are on my computer. We've also got physical connections in every podium where they can bring in their laptop or their iPad, connect it physically. Again, very low level. I don't need to know a lot about technology. I just need to know where to plug it in on my laptop, what button to press on my laptop, and then everything else I've described. Then they can select their laptop and show it to any of the screens in the room. So say you want to show something physical to the class that is hard for you to just hold up and show to them. In each room we have a document camera that has an articulated arm that comes in very handy. So I'm gonna switch my screen here to say document camera, and I'm gonna put it on this screen over my shoulder here. So, and I'm also gonna put it on a screen across the room so I can see what I'm showing you. So, let's say I just want to describe, let's say I want to describe a keyboard for whatever reason. I can focus the camera, do a tight shot of the keyboard, say it was important how I was putting my hands on the keyboard or something. So for close objects or close documents, you can see anywhere in the room what I'm doing. Now, the other interesting aspect of this camera is it has a built-in microphone as well as a very nice 4K camera. So I can do a whole shot of the room, and you can start to see what I'm talking about when I say this is a multi-screen room. You can see the screens all the way around the room. I can almost do a 360 degree. There's another whiteboard in the room. And while you may think this is crazy to talk about this in a technology room, and these are rooms that you probably sat in classes a lot of times, I want you to notice the furniture. We have stackable chairs, which kind of enable you to lean back. They're a pretty comfortable stackable chair, and a very small table. The way the room is set up here now, one person is sitting at each table. But why this is important is I've seen a lot of brand new classrooms that people have spent a lot of money on, and they put big spacious tables and very comfortable cushy chairs on wheels that you can roll around, and you just feel crowded. Because the bigger and cushier the chairs are, the fewer you can put in a room. We chose these tables and these chairs very purposefully to enable a lot of different configurations of the classroom. Each screen around the room could have a couple of tables, 4 or 5 chairs gathered around that grouping, and you have a mini, sort of your own mini classroom that you can have a group discussion, work on a group project, have your own the closer to it, it becomes a bigger screen. Each one of these screens around the room uses a device that's much like you may have an Apple TV at home that allows you to project your device to a screen. So each one of these has a device, a little Apple TV-like box. It's called the company's called Immersive, and the device is called a Solstice Pod. Associated with it. So in this room we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus a projector screen, 7. We have 7 screens in the room that all have a Solstice Pod 1 through Solstice Pod 7 on the switcher, that you can do the same thing that I described about the first projector. You can put whatever person in the group or combination of people in the group are working with that one pod, you can associate to a screen. So when the instructor is teaching, sends the students into group work, comes time to come back to the class, have the groups present to the class, that, say, group number 1 that's been working with screen number 1, the instructor at this control panel can send their device to every screen in the room. So while the group's doing their presentation, again, everyone in the room has great sight line to whichever screen is closest to them, and so on. As I was talking to you about and presenting to this one screen to my right, I also put the document camera on the screen in front of me so I could have what's referred to in the AV business as a confidence monitor. A lot of professors, when they're teaching to the room, have traditionally complained, but I can't see what's on the screen. I can't see what's on the projector screen. In this room, again, I'll put the document camera up here. I could put across the room the thing that's over my shoulder, so I don't have to constantly be looking back and doing this. Again, one of the niceties of having a room full of monitors. It isn't just for the wow factor. It's, again, I'll remind you back to what I said in the very beginning. We want to be able to scaffold up a low technology user to a high technology user step by step without dictating, I'm going to teach you a class and this is how you're going to have to teach in this room. The end result should be, if we've designed these rooms right, is you can do anything you want in this room. Now, again, putting the pieces together, perhaps you're in an environment, which we are in right now, where there's a lot of Zoom being used to work with remote students in the class. Luckily, part of the design guidance in this, what I've used to guide what we've done in these rooms is to allow for that possibility. It doesn't matter where the learner is. I mentioned that we've got one camera and microphone in the room. We've actually, in this room, got a second microphone, if you look at the thing that looks like a sound bar, that is not only a sound bar, we actually don't even use it as a sound bar, we use it as a microphone. And that microphone can pick up sound from anywhere in the room. So if I'm having a class discussion with 40 people in this room, the person sitting way back in the back corner can still be heard just like the student who's sitting right here in front of me. And best for last, because this is an iMac computer, there's a microphone and camera in this computer that's right here in front of me. So in this room, we actually have 3 different microphones that you can choose in Zoom, depending on what you're doing. If I'm just lecturing and it's just me and I just want a camera looking at my face, I can use the built-in camera in the computer. If I want a little wider range, or I'm in a room that doesn't have the whole room speaker set up, this microphone in here will pick up in about a 15-foot radius. So that covers about half of this class. It probably would pick up the far corners, but not as well. So that's just a selection that you do in Zoom as to which camera you want and which microphone you want. Not that it usually comes into play, and again, that's almost by design. People who have traditionally taught in classrooms that just have a projector and a screen often have to worry about, is the room too bright for the projector? In most of our rooms, we use a projector that's bright enough to work in full light, like this one. But we also have nearby to the teacher station the ability to dim all the lights, or turn the lights up with the single switch. So there's not a lot of, in some of the older rooms, there were so many different switches on so many ends of the room that sometimes the faculty just gave up on, they just left the lights on even if you couldn't see the projector. So we can dim the lights. What we find with the screens is they're bright enough that they usually work just fine in full daylight. So now I'm going to take you to another room that's a little different configuration, that was sort of, again, intentional, that has a slightly different purpose. Now we're in room 223 of Adderhold, which had some different design characteristics about it. First, I guess I should say a lot of rooms sort of dictate the arrangement of the technology in them. What I mean is, this is a much smaller room than the first one we looked at, which was Adderhold 119. But it still often has larger 20 to 25 capacity classes in it, whereas the other room typically has 30 to 40. So in this room, it's not as conducive to group work, but it was designed to be sort of a web conferencing, teleconferencing oriented room, if anything. So one thing you'll notice is it doesn't have a pull down screen, but it has 3 larger monitors which are grouped closer together, and that's purposeful in that you may want to have a distant person or group that might be on one screen, might have a shot of the classroom, as you can see here, and you may want to do a PowerPoint presentation or use as we talked about, you can switch anything anywhere. The other thing about this room is it didn't have enough space to put a teacher's podium out into the room like we do in many of the rooms. So the teacher's station is over in the corner. And one aspect of this is a lot of instructors like to stand behind something to teach. And obviously it's more of an issue of turning and having the computer available to you, but not having anything in front of you. So we have some of these roll around podium. It is adjustable up and down. So for accessibility, this would be a really good teacher station. Because we're now so far away from the keyboard, we have a wireless keyboard that's also connected to the teacher's computer. So I can essentially move around anywhere in the room and present from anywhere. Or I can, obviously even without this, you could sit at one of the tables and turn it around and face the classroom. That's the way a lot of our faculty teach. In this room, we also have a couple of devices that I didn't talk about in the other room. We have a smart board on the back wall, which is a monitor just like all the rest. So right now I'm using it as a confidence monitor to see the classroom shot. Smart board, I could also go to it, draw things that would show up on the screen. Have another device from Smart Technologies called a Smart Cap that looks like a traditional whiteboard, but you can set up mobile devices to capture anything that's written on it. So it has a QR code at the bottom right-hand corner. Student can scan that, and then anything the instructor writes on that whiteboard gets captured to the student's mobile device. Or, for that matter, a remote student could log into that QR code site and have captured whatever the instructor or student writes on the board. And then we have another traditional whiteboard on the wall too. And the whole room capture bar that we saw in the other room is a natural for this room, because if you were doing distant Zoom call, it would be really important to capture everything that's in the classroom. So now we're going to move on to one of our larger classrooms, and we can see how some of these elements come into those. Okay, now we're in G5, which is the largest classroom at the college. This is probably the most recently renovated of our rooms. It previously, as you can see, it's a very long room. Total is 80 students that this room will accommodate. It had previously been fixed seating in rows that faced that wall down there and on 2 levels. So it was line of sight was very bad for someone coming in late to class and getting in the last row. We now have 3 rows faced the other direction in the classroom. The most obvious technology change in this room was the what looked like 3 whiteboards at the front of the room that all have a projector above them. These are actually what are called interactive projectors. So you can actually use your finger or a stylus. You can write on the board with a regular dry erase marker, but you can also just write electronically on the board. This was a trade-off because there just weren't any other places to put whiteboards in these rooms, and a lot of the professors from other schools come here and they teach engineering and math and such, and they needed the whiteboards. As far as collaboration in this room, to get the number of seats in this room, this is our only room in the college with fixed tables. A bonus of putting in fixed tables is we were able to put power, a pop-up power in each one of the tables. So that's very convenient for laptops and iPads and such. But the nice thing about the movable chairs is, again, all the screens around the room are still built to accommodate collaboration, in that every other row is set up that you can turn around and do group work with every other row and have a monitor close by. So, and also just for standard class activities, it's a lot easier when you can look around, you know, when I don't have to look if the professor's writing something on that board way down there. They can also project that to a screen that's much nearer to me. I probably should mention that with monitors all around a room, it really challenges many instructors in that you can't necessarily count on where the student is looking. The traditional stand in front of the room and teach, you know, every eye was on the professor at the front of the room. In a room like this, you might almost be looking the total opposite direction that the professor is. So it's some uncomfortableness for the teacher, but this is the new age of collaboration with technology. So, you know, it's just part of what you face. Our teaching podium, again, because of the fact we were renovating a 80-seat classroom and knowing that we had to keep 80 capacity for 80 students in there, the podium again is pushed against the front of the room. There is an adjustable desk next to it, again, for accessibility for the instructor. Also, the first row of tables and chairs on the floor level are all on wheels, so those two can be arranged for using the front boards as collaboration or setting them up for other teaching styles. So, and this room, again, in light of thinking about several aspects of teaching, we have mounted in the ceiling, you can see with green lights here, this is another all-room audio microphone system, multiple microphone system that picks up anyone anywhere in the room. And we also have 4 in sort of the 2 in the back and 2 in the front, actual remote controlled pan tilt zoom cameras. So if you were, again, doing a high level multi-site activity, the instructor has control of the cameras and you could zoom right into, very close into almost any student in the room or anywhere the instructor walks in the front of the room. So that's G5 and Adderhold. And now we'll move on to some student collaboration spaces. Now we're just going to spend a few minutes looking at some of the student accessible spaces. These, in the industry, they're called huddle rooms. That name is just kind of stuck with us. We have 4 on the second floor of Adderhold. The idea here was to just create a private study gathering space for students, but to also give access to some of the technology you see in the classrooms, the smart cap, the smart board. We have a traditional whiteboard in each room, and 4 to 6 students can gather in here comfortably and work. And again, the idea is just that Smartboard has a bit of a learning curve to it, as does a smart cap, and this gives opportunity to have sort of one-to-one access to those technologies. Okay, the last stop on our tour is the student lounge on the second floor of Adderhold. Again, this room was renovated over the summer. And due to the popularity of the huddle rooms, when school's in session are almost always in use, we looked to other areas where we could replicate that sort of collaborative effort and collaborative with technology. So what you see here is, again, often design is dictated by the size of the room. We couldn't do the regular huddle rooms like you just saw, but we created little cubicles, more or less, with writable whiteboard space, video monitors, which can do all the immersive Solstice that we saw in the classrooms. But then the one unique feature of this is they revert to looking like portraits, paintings, when they're not in use. You see a bit of clutter on the desks now. We're in the midst of cleaning some of that up. Most of that technology will be behind the screens. We'll also have 3 very large smart boards in the room, and on this side of the room we have booths that people can sit in and collaborate.